After several band practices, you have finally reached the night of your live performance. But how do you actually prepare yourself for this live performance, even after all of those band practices? How do you deal with the issue of adapting to a new venue? How do you ensure that you are doing everything in your part to contribute to a successful performance? Also, how do you deal with any nerves that you may be experiencing before the performance? In this video, I will go over some of these main issues and will introduce 4 main tips on how to prepare yourself for an effective live performance, specifically for percussionists. My first tip is to always ensure that your music is prepared and organized, and is most importantly, with you. It is often common in the percussion section to feel that they have the music they need for the performance, when really, when it comes to the night of the performance, they look through their folder and it isn't even there. One main reason for this is because often some percussion parts are written on the same sheet of music. For example, the capo player's part may appear on the same sheet as the crash cymbal player's part. These players may often share their music at band practice, but when it comes to the night of the performance, the crash cymbal player may assume that the capo player is bringing the music, when really they may have forgotten, misplaced it, or thought the same thing of the other. Therefore, to avoid these kind of confusing situations, it's best to just pack extra music to provide to these players in case this happens. In terms of organization, it is always a good idea to ask your conductor what order they want to perform the pieces in during the performance. This will allow you to go through your folder in advance and organize your music into this order, so when it comes to the concert night, you can relax instead of rummaging through your folder trying to find the next piece. My next tip is to know your instrument and, if possible, know your stage. When it comes to a live performance, you're not always going to be in that same band practice environment you've grown so used to. You're going to be in a new environment where you may not even recognize the sound of the band due to the change in the size of the environment and acoustics. Therefore, it's good to seize any opportunity to visit the venue before your performance, such as during dress rehearsals, and see how you would set up the percussion on that stage. It's also really good to know your instrument and how other members of your section would use and set up this instrument. This is really useful during fast transitions between pieces in the performance, because you'll know how they set up the instrument, and you can easily adjust the stand for them and set it up so they can quickly transfer over to that part. Like having your music prepared, it's always really important for the percussionists to ensure that they have all the sticks they need for an entire performance ready and with them. This is often really difficult for percussionists to do though, because there are so many different sticks that you use throughout a performance. For example, there are the hard mallets that conductors usually prefer for more intense upbeat pieces that require more emphasis on a downbeat, though there are also calmer pieces where it's better to use soft mallets to keep the percussion as more of a background effect. Therefore, it's a really good idea to bring all the members of your section together and put all the sticks that you feel you need for a performance into a bin. Then get each member of the section to check over the bin and make sure everything they need for each piece is in it. It's also always a good idea to pack extra sticks, because just because it's the night of the performance, it is likely that one of the members of your section may either break a stick or misplace a stick at the venue. My fourth and final tip is to stretch. This is a really important step in the process of preparing for a live performance for percussion. Because drumming involves a lot of repetitive use of the wrist and arm regions, it's important to stretch to prevent percussion injuries such as carpal tunnel syndrome and tendinitis. Both of these injuries result in inflammation or irritation of tendons and nerves in the wrist and arm regions. Also, stretching can really help to improve the quality of your performance, since you're able to relieve any tense muscles and really loosen up. So there are 2 main stretches that I'm going to show you that percussionists often perform before their performances. The first one is mainly for the wrists, while the second is for the wrists and arms and is a little more complicated to figure out. So I'll start by showing you a simple wrist extension. This involves holding your arms out in front of you with the top of your hand facing the ceiling as you grip your sticks. You then bend your wrists forward and backward, forward and backward, and you can repeat this as many times as you feel necessary. The next stretch is a little more complicated, and I often recommend doing wrist extensions or other exercises like simply shaking your wrists out to loosen up before performing the stretch. So this stretch actually involves a certain stick positioning where the head of one of your sticks must line up with the end of the other stick. And this allows for there to be the same grip on both sides of the sticks. You then carry out the stretch the same way where you hold your arms out in front of you, except this time the top of your hand is going to be facing the floor. And then you're going to start by bringing one of your hands into your chest. So I'll start with my right hand. You bring it into your chest and down, followed by your left hand going into your chest and down until you wind out into this stretching position. And it's a little hard to get into the first time, so it might take some practice. This is really good for your wrists, but if you want a deeper stretch in your arms, you can also raise your arms above your head. You can add torso movements in if you wish, before bringing your arms down and simply winding out of the stretch. Feel free to use any of these stretches and also add in your own, such as shoulder stretches or any others that you feel may help relax you more before your performance. Follow these tips to set yourself up for a successful live performance. You may know the band pieces really well, but it's also important to have all the music you need with you to play these parts effectively. It's also important to know your instrument and any venue setup plans. Ensure that you have all the sticks you need and more, and make sure that everyone in your section has stretched before the performance to prevent injury and loosen any tense muscles so they can play to the best of their ability.